Good afternoon. Hello, everyone. We'll just give a few seconds while people join us from the waiting room. So let's get started. Welcome. Good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you're joining us today. Thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar on addressing municipal challenges through sustainability. In the next hour, we'll be diving into opportunities for generating co-benefits in your net zero building projects. Uh, we've got a great lineup of speakers and content for you today. We certainly hope that the insights from today's session will help support dynamic and co-benefiting environmental projects in your municipality, particularly in the realm of climate resilience, embodied carbon, circularity, and socioeconomic benefits are the three of many multi-solving co-benefit topics that we're going to dive into today. Before we dive in, just a couple of housekeeping items to get us all set up and ready to go. The conversation today will take place in English. We do have French interpretation available. We have four excellent speakers today, and we'll also have some time for a Q&A. For those of you who wish to listen to the presentation in French, si vous souhaitez écoute en français, veuillez cliquer sur le bouton d'interprétation en bas à droite de votre écran. C'est un petit globe et sélectionnez le canal français. As we move through the presentation and discussion today, I ask that you submit your questions in English ou en français to the Q&A box as they come up. We'll respond to those questions in a few ways. We may respond to your question directly in the Q&A box, so certainly keep your eyes peeled on that. And in our discussion time, we'll have the opportunity to pull some questions and ask our presenters today to expand and to converse on those questions as they arise. I do fully invite you to use the chat box also throughout the discussion. Those of you who know me know I am a big proponent of chat box conversations. Certainly keep the discussion and conversation alive in that chat box throughout, and we can engage with each other on these topics. To sort of kickstart us, our FCM office is located in Ottawa, Ontario, which is the unceded, unsurrendered territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin Nations, who we at the Federation of Canadian Municipalities recognize as the traditional custodians of this land, and we deeply appreciate their historic connection to this place, along with the contributions of Métis, Inuit, and all First Nations, both in shaping and strengthening this community in Ottawa in particular, and to our country as a whole. I am joining you today from present-day Orillia, Ontario, which is nestled between the shores of Lake Couchiching and Lake Simcoe, and is the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe people, the Chippewas of Rama First Nation, and the Huron-Wendat peoples. The Green Municipal Fund works daily to accelerate the transformation to resilient net zero communities. We do this through a unique mix of funding and capacity building programming. GMF specifically manages about $2.4 billion in programs funded by the Government of Canada. Today's topic is really trying to dive into co-benefits and multi-solving. We use a multi-solving approach, which we believe can amplify a project's impacts by incorporating improvements for a variety of different factors. In GMF, in addition to GHG emission reductions, which is certainly an important outcome we're driving for in many of our funded areas, we're also interested in ecological co-benefits, such as water conservation, sustainable materials management like circularity and embodied carbon considerations, as well as biodiversity benefits and resilience. We're also interested in those socioeconomic benefits, including how can these projects advance reconciliation in our community? Where can we advance equity and inclusion through our projects implementations? Social procurement, which we're going to talk about today, including those local financial benefits that projects can bring to each of our communities, among others. Today, we have invited a great lineup of speakers to give us some insights into some of the various real world examples to deliver these multi-solving gains. We have Dr. Anabela Bonada, Managing Director of Climate Science at the Intact Center of Climate Adaptation at the University of Waterloo. Marcos Alejandro Badra, Circular Economy Program Manager at the City of Richmond. And Maria Adelaida Fernandez, Socioeconomic Benefits Specialist here at the Green Municipal Fund. So welcome. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon, and let's get to it. So without further ado, I'm going to pass the floor over to Dr. Bonada.
Hello. Let me just share my screen. I think there we go. And you should be able to see my presentation as full screen now, I believe.
Yes, we
So
do. Thank you.
perfect. Thank you so much. And thank you for inviting me today to present. This sounds like such a great opportunity to be able to talk about co-benefits on the resilience side. So as you can see from my title, I'm going to be focused on how to make communities more resilient to flood, wildfire, and extreme heat. So as you think about your funding, your applications to funding, there's so much that you can do that already is being done on the mitigation side that can also be considered for resilience or adaptation, or other actions that you might have not considered that you can incorporate and make your community more resilient. So before we get into some of the guidance and the actions that we have available, I just thought we should talk about why do we focus on extreme heat, on wildfire, flooding? So we know that as temperatures rise, so do extremes. This little video here is going to show you that by 2024, we hit the hottest year on record. Since 1948, the average temperature rise in Canada has been about 2 degrees, and that's about double the rest of the world. Our northern region is warming at about 3 to 4 times more than the rest of the world. So we're looking at like a 4-degree increase on average. And that average temperature change also changes our extremes and is making us experience more frequent and extreme weather. And what we focus on at the Intact Center is flooding, because flooding is widespread across Canada. These are all examples that I've just pulled out from 2024 of some of these events: extreme heat and wildfire. And so we had an oppressive heat wave this past summer. We only really had one major one in Canada, but that was almost an anomaly at this point. I don't know what we'll see this summer or going forward, but we do know the chances of those events occurring more often and lasting longer is increasing. We know that heat wave and other heat waves that we saw through the summer, now we know how much of that was due to climate change, thanks to these rapid attribution studies that Environment and Climate Change Canada is doing. So they run a study after an extreme weather event, and they're able to tell us just how much of that event was due to climate change. So climate change made it twice as likely or 3 times more likely to occur. This summer, we also had those flash floods in Toronto, which caused a lot of damage, and southern Ontario. Calgary saw an extreme hailstorm that it hadn't had before, and it caused about $2.5 billion in damage, in insured damage. And then that was followed by torrential rains in southern Quebec that isolated people, that caused electricity blackouts. It caused major issues for a lot of areas of Quebec. So these are just examples from 2024 and from a few months in 2024. I'm not even including some of the other events that have occurred. So as extreme weather increases, so do the costs that we see. So I don't know if you've seen this graph before, but what it's showing are catastrophic losses due to extreme weather. So in order for there to be an insured catastrophic loss, it has to have hit $30 million. If it didn't hit 30 million, it's not on this graph. So these numbers are conservative. And what it's showing here is, since it started being tracked in 1983, it's just how much those insured losses are going up. And 2024 was the highest that we've seen so far. And we had about $9.1 billion in insured losses, caused by several things. It's not even just by like one major wildfire, for example, like Fort McMurray we saw in 2016 go through an area. This was all these events together just caused these losses. And so what this is also showing, we have that gray area there on the graph. Since 2009, on average, we're almost hitting 3 billion a year. But before that, losses were about 400 million to 500 million on average. And all those numbers that I'm giving you are corrected to for inflation and to 2024 Canadian dollars. Now, what's not being captured in this graph are the uninsured losses. So our conservative number that we have for this is that for every dollar of insured loss, we experience about 3 to 4 in uninsured loss. That's being paid out by all of us taxpayers, by our municipalities, by businesses. It's lost time from work. It's how much it's costing our healthcare to manage some of these impacts from extreme weather. It's homes that are not insured right now. There are losses that are not insured that we still have to pay for. So that's not being captured here. Extreme weather is costing us a lot of money. So the first one that I just want to mention, and we'll quickly go through the three, flooding, wildfire, and extreme heat. Flooding is the most common and costly climate hazard when it comes to property damage. It can happen across Canada, and about 10% of homes right now are built in areas that are uninsurable. So that might be along coast or on floodplains that are already mapped, and so they cannot even be insured. But all infrastructure in Canada, so municipal or neighborhoods, can experience flooding from extreme rainfall events at this point. So we used to say it was just some homes, it was homes in major cities or along coast. But now, really, these extreme rainfall events, like the example that I just showed from that happened in Toronto, Southern Ontario, and Quebec, that was just extreme rain that came from hurricanes that had touched on the U.S. and landed here as well. So that can happen almost any time and pretty much anywhere, which means our chances of flooding are quite high. When it comes to wildfire, there are a few things that I think everyone should know. The first one is wildfire is a natural process in Canada. So we need it for our forests, for our grasslands, to regenerate, to open up space for new trees, to maintain a healthy soil. What's changing here is how, our population that's moving into these areas. So right now, and this is an older numbers from 2017, about 12.3% of the population lives in the wildland urban interface, or the WUI, which is where forest, grassland meet our communities, our infrastructure. And that includes 32.1% of on-reserve Indigenous population. So Indigenous people are absolutely affected in a disproportionate way by wildfire and wildfire smoke, by wildfire evacuations. They only make up 4% of Canada's population and about 40%, but they make up about 40% of evacuations each year. So wildfire risk is on the rise. One of the reasons is population growth. We're moving more and more into these areas. We like to live by a forest and have trees around us, but then we're increasing our risk. There's a lack of building codes right now for wildfire resistant materials for homes to be built that way. And of course, from decades of fire suppression. So since colonialism, we started suppressing those fires, not letting them burn. So now when fires do occur, they're much, much bigger. And climate change. So climate change is leading to more drought, more vegetation on the ground, and hot, windy days to spread that fire. And extreme heat is the last one that I'll mention before we get into some guidance. So extreme heat is known as a silent killer. It doesn't come through the way that flooding and wildfire does, destroying infrastructure. So we don't hear about it as much, and there isn't as much of a concern about it yet. But it can make people sick and can even lead to death, especially in our equity deserving population. So as you think about those co-benefits and who you really want to impact in your communities, extreme heat is the major one here. The deadliest extreme weather event in Canada to ever occur was a 2021 heat dome in BC that resulted in 619 heat-related deaths. Most of the people that experienced those deaths were elderly, had chronic illness, living alone. Even if they had air conditioning, they didn't have it on. So it's absolutely affecting different parts of our population compared to others. And there have been other events and other heat waves that have led to a large number of deaths as well. So I very quickly went through what I hope is the bad news. And now I really want to focus on the good news with the bit of time I have left. So I won't go through these. You have these in your application, but what are those co-benefits that we're looking at? And the reason I put them up here is because when I read through these, I thought, well, adaptation can do all of these in one way or another. So when we say adaptation, we're talking about just preparing our communities for the impacts of climate change, making them resilient. So some of the guidance and the tools that I have for you that are all free, downloadable. Oh, I didn't include the QR codes, but I have a QR code at the end. We have some for flooding. So for flooding, we have the Municipal Flood Risk Checkup tool. It looks like an Excel sheet. So here I'm showing you the report and then an infographic that we did later. You download the Excel sheet and you go through about 50 questions that determine what your flood hazard and risk is, how exposed to flood your community is, and how prepared you are. So have you made plans to deal with flooding in your community, and have you implemented those plans? And so it just kind of helps you come up with a score and determine where you really need to focus your funding and your time when it comes to mitigating flood risk. We also have community level wildfire resources. So one of them is this infographic. We love infographics at the Intact Center. We can talk about it more in the Q&A, but we like to very quickly show what people can do around their homes and around their community to better prepare. And we don't have a fancy looking one for heat yet, but we do have the actions available in our irreversible extreme heat report. So some things that can be done by communities. So again, I won't go through the actions now just due to time, but please feel free to go online and download our resources where you can really determine what you can do in your projects to increase your resilience. So the message I do want to leave you with is that we need to act now. We know the solutions and there's no time to wait. So after the severe flooding in Valencia that we saw, I think it was in October. Yeah, in October of this past year, Frederick Otto, and you can look her up after, she's amazing. She said, severe flooding is unfortunately inevitable. What isn't inevitable is how ready we are. So as you plan your communities and plan your funds, think how ready you can get your community and resilient you can get it to be for this extreme weather that we're experiencing. So that is a QR code for our website. You have my contact information as well, and I'm happy to answer questions during the Q&A.
Thank you so much, Anabela, and such a great presentation. Thank you. Eye-opening with also some great solutions, so appreciate that. I am now going to invite Marcos Badra from the city of Richmond to share some, I think, some great examples of what they're doing on the ground in Richmond. So over to you, Marcos.
Thank you, Lindsay. I guess that you can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you for the opportunity to be presenting here. The Richmond implemented a circular city strategy in 2023. Here is one slide summarizing everything that Anabela presented very, very well to us about what is the problem. We are using the circular economy as a multi-solving approach to achieve our climate goals. And just from the beginning, when we are talking about circular economy, we are not talking about recycling, but we are approaching the complexity of the reality of our economy and how we are using materials and energy in our community to satisfy the community needs. Our strategy is divided in 6 directions or areas focus. It's not industry related, but it's how the materials are flowing in our economy. And we can understand how we can make interventions to support reduce our material print and also our carbon footprint. This strategy is well connected with the community energies and emissions plans and aligned with our procurement policy, corporate procurement policy at the city to achieve our climate goals. The vision for the circular economy in Richmond is how we are maximizing the value of resources, and that is the primary focus. You are seeing that we are not focusing on the end of life of material, but from the beginning, how we can plan better the consumption of the materials and how we can keep them as long as possible to maximize the value of these materials in our economy. We have 5 principles that are leading our initiative, projects, policies, and direction. That is in the infographic you can see in the external circle, the maximize value, design clean, collaborate to co-create, keep using, and regenerate. And in the inner circle, you can see what are the primary goals that we are pursuing or the benefit that we are looking for. That is economic opportunities, social equity and social benefits, natural regeneration, and innovation. Our strategy is built, just to give you why we are saying this is a multi-solving approach, is built and well connected with the last 20 years work in the city, aligned with plans, strategies, programs, and policies. And they are coming to complement, accelerate our transition toward a low carbon economy, reducing our emissions and achieving our climate goals, but at the same time approaching another goal that we have in different sectors on different areas in Richmond. I talked about these principles. They are guiding our ideas, and why that's important. The recently material flow analysis that we implemented in Richmond show us that aligned with the global emissions, 70% of our emissions are associated with the consumed materials we are using, and they are flowing in our economy, and how we are using these materials in our economy. To achieve the climate goals, you can see here, without the circular economy approach and the embodied carbon that is integrated in our economy, we can achieve that results by 2030, 2050, when we are set the goals to reduce emissions and also achieve the climate goals. The material flow analysis helps us to understand our material consumption or material footprint in Richmond. You can see we are comparing with another cities in Canada, like Montreal, globally Munich, and what is the average in the planet. And the global sustainable level for consumption is around 8 tons maximum per capita. When we are going to see what are the material footprints is coming from, you can see here our infographic that is showing the materials coming from different parts of the globe. We are in global community. Richmond is importing around 86% of the products that we are using in our economy. When we are moving from the materials, understanding how that is helping to understand the carbon footprint based on this material consumption, we can see that 20% are scope 1 and 80% scope 2 and 3. And we have the same average per capita in emissions here, embodied emissions, like Canada. When we are saying where that's coming from, 40% is in Richmond, where we have direct influence, but no control. And you can see the rest of Canada is around 30%, and the rest of the world is 30%. The primary sectors about the emissions, you can see that is the manufacturing of consumer goods that is produced or used in Richmond. You can see 50% is connected directly with construction activities, and 12% about the food system in Richmond. And when we're mapping, putting all together emissions and material flow, that is the level of complexity that we have and we are embracing. Now, focusing on the built environment, we cover that. We know that our emissions, embodied emissions, are coming from the construction sector, and you can see our infographic to try to explain what exactly the embodied emission. I'm pretty sure that everyone now in this webinar is aware about this, but we are identifying opportunities to reduce the embodied emission where we have mandate in the city. For that, we started in 2024 an industry program engagement to start to identify and work in different angles and different perspectives to identify how we can reduce embodied emissions in the built environment in Richmond, at the same time supporting affordability, and developing local businesses and local economic opportunities, and in making more inclusive and available different diverse type of materials to achieve the housing goals and another infrastructure goal that we have in Richmond. At the same time, we started the consultation to how we can also use another tools or policies to achieve these embodied carbon reductions based on our learning. Our understanding, and we are working on this right now, is how we can expand the demolition bylaw to develop or support the development of the secondary material market when we are going to introduce new materials in the sector that can allow low carbon material for the built environment, that at the same time is connected with no prime cost, as we identified, and other opportunities around this. We are implementing, we have the Circular Learning Hub that you can access in richmond.ca/circular economy. And we are now, as next step, we are going to publish soon the material flow analysis study and the carbon scan in Richmond, and this allowing us to prioritize activities and decisions around this. We, in the Circular Learning Hub, we posted really large number of toolkits and webinars when we are encouraging industry from different sides of builders and in the build environment to understand opportunities around what materials can be included, how we can design from the beginning low carbon approaches in the build environment, how we can identify materials at the same time, couple these for prime costs or increase in the budget, and another toolkits that we are going to share in Richmond. Here's my contact. You can access the richmond.ca/circular economy and access more tools to understand our multi-solving approach.
Thank you, Marcus. So much in there on, and I suspect some questions coming on how you did all of that and within the city. So prepare those answers, and we'll circle back in our Q&A. Maria, over to you to talk about some of the applied approaches that we're looking to support at the Green Municipal Fund on how we can integrate socioeconomic benefits into our projects.
Thank you, Lindsay, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm very happy to be here sharing with you the way you could integrate socioeconomic co-benefits into your building projects. So next slide, please. This is the approach to multi-solving that we have here at the Green Municipal Fund. It was proposed on our last strategic plan, 2023-2026. As you can see, the multi-solving approach includes several areas of work, but we'll be talking specifically about our socioeconomic benefits. Next. So these are the 5 indicators that we selected to improve on the socioeconomic benefits from our projects with this multi-solving approach. There are 2 mandatory ones that the idea is for them to be integrated in all the projects that we fund at the Green Municipal Fund. The first one is social procurement. I'm going to talk more about it in a few minutes. The other one is community engagement. And then we have 3 optional indicators. Accessibility, which touches everything that has to do with including measures for disability, people with disability to be able to enjoy certain spaces. Inclusive employment and apprenticeship. This one is only for capital projects. And the last indicator, optional indicator, is improved shared spaces. Next. So social procurement has a lot of potential if you include it in your projects, specifically in your construction projects, to to generate local economic benefits. The social procurement, the idea is for you to choose to try and open or input some specific requirements in your RFPs for specific businesses. And there are four categories of businesses that create value for your community and hence are evaluated as social procurement. The first one is diverse businesses, where those businesses are majority owned by members of an equity deserving group. In general, the second category is the social purpose businesses. Those are businesses that are big corporations, for example, certified by Social Canada, that are trying to create social value. In this category, you can also find non-profit organizations and cooperatives. The third category of businesses is small companies where that have less than 100 employees. And the final category is local companies. So again, companies that are located in your community less than 100 kilometers away. All of these, if you tailor your procurement policies in order to support this kind of businesses, you're gonna have co-benefits where either money is going to go to your local businesses, you're going to support small companies, you're also going to support businesses that create social value in your community, and businesses that are owned by equity deserving groups. Next. Some of what is possible if you integrate social procurement in your procurement policies and processes. So for example, for every $100 spent with a local independent office supply business in your community, $73 are going to be reinvested locally, compared to a big box business where for every $100 spent, only $14 is going to be reinvested locally. Next. Another study was able to show that if you hire a community social company, for every dollar that you spend with a specific target group, the social return on investment can be close to $4.13. Next. This is a study case for social procurement. So in Toronto, Building Up, which is the Toronto Community Housing Corporation, allows for direct awards with nonprofits who employ residents from the Toronto area. So Building Up partner with the Toronto Community Housing and is able to provide skills training and support for equity deserving groups to build careers in the construction industry. To date, these contracts have led to more than 1.4 million in direct wages to TCHC residents. So again, this is co-benefits that you can create with your projects depending on how you design your RFPs and what kind of clause you introduce to be able to hire or obtain procurement from these social procurement businesses. Next. Inclusive engagement is also a very important or powerful tool that you can use. So the idea here is to be able to hear your community depending on the type of project you're envisioning, especially if it's a project, a building that's gonna really connect the community. For example, a community center, an aquatic center. So again, if you engage early on with your community and with different groups, and depending on the context with equity deserving groups, you're gonna get ideas. The people are gonna be connected to the project. They're gonna feel the project as theirs, and the project is going to improve not only the community as a whole, but the quality of life of those groups that were engaged. Next. One very interesting case study was done in the Waterloo region by the Waterloo Region Housing Corporation. There was this project that wanted to blend affordability with thoughtful design. And during the design process, the project engaged with the community. They engaged with the existing tenants to be able to hear their voices and understand their needs. And this engagement was done primarily through virtual meetings led both by regional staff and city councilors. And again, the level of quality and satisfaction from the tenants increased significantly thanks to the community engagement. Next. This is another amazing case study that I like very much. This project was done in Toronto. Right now, it's become the Witchwood Barns. So it was a 1920 streetcar facility that was decommissioned in 1978. In 2000, it was considered to be demolished because it was an abandoned area, like very scary area of the city. But the community really wanted to save the historic buildings that were there. But they were very divided in terms of what to do on the space. So there was an extensive process of engagement. It took a long time. So community engagement is not necessarily easy. It can be a challenge, but if you keep on it, it can provide amazing results. In 2008, it was decided that it was going to become a multi-use community art and housing park and garden space that opened that year, and it has changed completely the neighborhood. Next. So this community engagement process took 5 years to be able to arrive at a shared vision for the project. It included more than 100 neighbors that participated on the different kinds of activities that they did to be able to achieve that vision. And in the end, it was a project that was community-led from beginning to end. Next. Inclusive employment, it's one of the optional indicators for us, but it can also have a lot of impact in your communities. This is only for capital projects, but then the idea is to think about how you can provide opportunities for employment to equity deserving groups or for apprenticeship that will allow them to gain valuable skills and obviously to improve their quality of life. Next. For example, one study was able to identify that for every 1 million contract with local suppliers, you could create 3.6 jobs compared to only 1.8 or 2 jobs with multinational corporations. Next. Again, this case study from the Waterloo Region Housing Corporation is also a very good study for inclusive employment. The project pilot a community benefits program to help recruit, engage, and retain a diverse construction labor force. The program creates opportunity for individuals from groups traditionally underrepresented in the construction industry. And it created 2 full-time jobs during the project. Next. Another of the co-benefits that is an optional one, but that can also have an important impact on your community is thinking about how to include accessibility components into your project for people with disabilities, for example, or elderly or children. And this goes hand in hand with the last one of our co-benefits, which is improved shared spaces, where you really think about the physical elements and the non-so-physical elements to be able to create a very inviting, very like community-oriented space. Next. So a couple of study cases on accessibility. One is the Abbotsford Recreation Center. Once you get the presentation, we will be able to click on all the titles of the case studies, and then you can go to one web page where the case studies are explained in more detail. So for the Abbott Center Recreation Center, 2 new wheelchair pool lifts were helping individuals with mobility challenge navigate space independently and safely to be able to enjoy the recreation center. And in the Muriel Ross Court in Fort Saskatchewan, the Robin Hood Association was hired to help individuals with disabilities experience quality lifestyles, and it was committed that they will improve each project units that were going to be available to these people with disabilities, so they could incorporate their needs and things that will allow them to enjoy the space independently. Next. Witchwood Barns is also a great example of accessibility measures. There's a link there for a video that you can look at later on, but all the spaces were designed in order to make it accessible for everyone. And then there's also a way of identifying the different areas of the barns with this color coding that you can see on the picture to your right. So depending on where you are, everything that signals specific places, it's signaled on the specific color of the building. Next. Finally, also in Witchwood Barns, really interesting examples of improved shared spaces. They created, as you can see, a space for a volleyball, a beach volleyball in the summer that actually becomes a skating ring in winter. So it's a space that can be enjoyed all year round, as well as the area where the kids can play with the water there, that I don't remember the name of that. I will provide the link to Witchwood Barns on the chat. Next. I think that's the last. Yes, and then I also wanted to share with you the way we are evaluating these new indicators on the GMF projects. So we have some questions included in the application form. Questions like, do you have a social procurement policy in place? And if yes, to attach the policy, and also a question to describe your inclusive community engagement strategy. Next. In the completion report, we also ask specific questions about how was the money spent in social procurement, how did you implement your inclusive engagement strategy, how many job opportunities you created during the project, the accessibility measures that were implemented, and how did you improve the shared spaces. And so some of them are optional, and some of them are requirements, but we are also building a set of toolkits to help you navigate to these new indicators. Next. And if you have any questions, you can write to me through this email. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Something that is striking me throughout all these presentations is just the possibilities. I really appreciate the case studies and the really practical examples that are being shared. So thank you all for that. I'm now going to turn it over to Mathieu Leblanc, who's an outreach advisor with the Green Municipal Fund. Mathieu, there's lots of questions coming through in the Q&A box on funding offers. So after your presentation, we'll direct your attention there to answer some of those.
Great. Thank you, Lindsay. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Yes, perfect. And for those that are asking questions, I'll try to answer, but if ever either I don't have the answer or I don't have time, I'm sure we'll set a time that I can answer all of them one by one. So no problem there. So thanks again, Lindsay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mathieu. I'm a member of the Programs Outreach Department here at the Green Municipal Fund. I was Outreach Advisor. My role is to inform clients of potential funding opportunities and work collaboratively with them on their application. Next slide, please. The main goal I have today would be to have a broad conversation of what is the Green Municipal Fund, to look at GMF initiatives at a glance and show how GMF can help you in your journey. By the end, you should I know we briefly talked about FCM and GMF at the start of the webinar, but I wanted to highlight that the fact that GMF, which is FCM's biggest program, is a leading program in driving local green innovation across the country. And GMF has a double mission, which is to one, support municipal initiatives in sustainable development through funding, and two, share knowledge and lessons learned. GMF funding covers projects at all stages, from business cases to plans and studies to pilot projects and capital projects. Next slide, please. One more, please. So in the past 24 years, GMF has grown quite a bit. We now offer 10 different initiatives, from climate adaptation to fleet electrification to sustainable housing and to community building retrofit. Each initiative contains multiple offers, from business cases to all the way to capital projects. And wherever you are at the feasibility study or design stage, or you are shovel ready, we have funding opportunities to help support your project at each stage. For today, I didn't want to go into details on each initiative, but I simply wanted to make you aware of them and that we are simply a phone call away to answer any of your questions. Next slide, please. Now, how can GMF help? Well, I just mentioned that GMF has a double mission. So first off, we can provide funding. I won't have time to go in details on each initiative, but note that the numbers depend on the project type, the applicant, and the offer itself. Now, for a quick overview at what is available. Grant-only funding usually covers from 50% to 80% of eligible costs. And for business cases, the grants can go up to a maximum of $100,000. For feasibility study, it can go up to $200,000, while pilot projects usually go up to $500,000, and all the way to the climate adaptation that can go up to $1 million. Again, this depends on the funding offer and the project itself. Most capital projects offers have a combination of loan and grant that covering up to 80% of eligible costs to a maximum of $10 million, which, remember, is the combination of loan and grants. So as you see, wherever you are in your project stage, GMF may have some funding available for your municipality. Next slide, please. And the second way GMF can help is providing you with information, as we are today. As explained at the start of the presentation, one of GMF's mission is to share knowledge and lessons learned to all. On our website, under resources, you can find lots of information, starting from project database, where you can search for past funded projects using the keywords. And this is a great tool to help municipality get ideas of potential projects. You'll also find recordings of past webinars and workshops that you can watch and listen to on your own pace, and our upcoming events. Finally, you can also find resources like fact sheets, guides, and much more. So I encourage everyone to have a look at those. Next slide, please. I know Maria kind of touched a little bit on this, so I won't spend too much time on it. But I did want to talk about multi-solving approach today, and I thought I could also briefly discuss what your application should touch on when submitting your project to GMF. While multi-solving is mostly discussed under the Sustainable Municipal Bidding Initiative, and may not be required for each initiative at this time, we encourage all applicants to take a look at multi-solving and the multi-solving approach as part of their projects, regardless of the project type. GMF seeks to fund the very best examples of municipal initiatives that achieve a multitude of benefits from the environment, communities, and the local economies. Higher application evaluation scores may be given to projects that demonstrate excellence in one or more of these areas. Next slide, please. So in conclusion, GMF, no matter where you are in your project stage, is there to help you. I encourage you to reach out to GMF, either to myself or use the QR code on screen to schedule a call with a GMF advisor to discuss your ideas of your projects. It will be our pleasure to see your project is a good fit and the funding is available. And to stay up to date, we always encourage you to subscribe to our newsletter. Thank you.
Thank you, Mathieu. I'd like to invite all of our speakers today to turn their videos on and come back on screen. Again, lots of questions on funding specifics. I'm not gonna ask those in the full group. We'll do our best to respond to those as able to directly in that Q&A box. But there is one question I thought maybe I would use to get us started. And that I'm not seeing all of our presenters. Can we turn off screen share now so we can see all of our presenters? Awesome. So I thought maybe that the one question that's come through that I would kickstart this discussion with is one around how can local government staff or maybe even a city councilor best frame the benefits and the needs for co-benefits to their council, to the decision makers in the city, and what recommendations would you have on how to best frame that to those decision makers in communities? I thought, Marcos, we could start with you on how you've done it in Richmond and what were the points that really got people's attention?
It's a really good question. To identify multi benefits or benefits in different areas or sectors, I guess that the first step is to start to use different tools. The system thinking approach to understand is a really good tool that you can start to use. Will help you to identify all the complexities in the system that you are trying to come with a solution and the unintended consequences or the byproducts or by consequence that you can create by approaching this specific problem or solution. The circular strategy in Richmond, we did that, and that's the reason that we start to map different stakeholders and understand the materials are flowing in the economy and affecting different sectors and different groups. And using the system thinking approach help us to identify earlier these groups, these needs, and later the potential benefits and how we can engage and start to share information with all these different groups and stakeholders. And later put that all together to share with our council in the way that we did in the strategy.
Thanks, Marcos. Maria, Dr. Bonada, any further thoughts either of you have on that?
Yes, I think the way maybe to present this to council is, I was thinking about you don't have that many opportunities to do big investments in your communities every year. Maybe you can do two or three projects at most, maybe just one, depending on if you're a rural or an urban municipality. So I would go and show that given that you don't have much opportunity, just try to get the most of that investment. And there are in my presentation, and maybe we can think about introducing more of those little tidbits in the guides, Lindsay, but there's these things where you can show really that if you invest a little bit more in engagement with the community, you can get more benefits at the end of the project than if you don't do it. So it's like maybe take a little bit more time in the design, thinking about how to get more with that same investment. And I guess if you go with a very with clear like extra benefits that you can get from the project, I think the council is it's gonna be like definitely do that way, and especially with climate adaptation. And when you think about socioeconomic, it's also promoting local economic development. And right now with the realities with trade and Trump and all of that, we really need to use our Canadian funds for our Canadian communities.
Thanks, Maria. Yeah, I mean, it sort of draws my attention to some of the dollar analysis that you had in your presentation as well. And when we invest $1 locally, the spin-off benefits and economic benefits that our communities see. And I suspect that argument would have lots of support in our local towns and communities. Dr. Bonada, to you, what would you add to that conversation?
Yeah, those are really good points. Adding that dollar value usually works well with, council. And so another number that we have is that for every dollar that's invested in adaptation measures, there's about $2 to $10. And again, these are conservative numbers in return over a 10-year period. So it's beneficial to do it now. We save in the long run. If we're looking at co-benefits from the environment, there's a lot of work that's been done by Natural Assets Initiative that's showing just, for example, how much like a wetland might save us in absorbing water and cleaning water in that like flood mitigation side. There's an actual number that they put to it that can be brought forth when we talk about resilience and putting a number on it. So the co-benefit side, I think, can be done with the numbers, but as well as just talking about these major investments. So if we're going to invest, for example, somebody added there that they had a storm surge that caused over $500,000 in infrastructure damage. And without having the details of what that looks like, if we're only investing in like gray infrastructure, for example, for our coastal flooding and erosion and not investing in some of the nature-based solutions, it's going to cost us more in the long term when the storms do come through. So just bringing that forth and showing those numbers might help.
Great, thank you. I'm going to take a spin off on a question that I saw in the Q&A, and we'll maybe do a quick round on thoughts on this. And that's particularly the opportunities or maybe the challenges for small communities. And so if you were a small community working with a small community, where would you recommend they start on this journey of identifying multi-solving priorities or co-benefits in a project? It can feel overwhelming when you look at all the different requirements and or opportunities that are out there. I mean, really, we're touching on just a couple co-benefits today. There are many more. So how do you get started? Who wants to kickstart that one?
Well, maybe I can put like a plug for that, the municipal flood risk checkup tool that I mentioned. It's been designed to work for municipalities across Canada of all sizes. So even just doing the tool and being able to have like a bit of a roadmap on where to start, on where the most critical areas and where that funding can go could help. And I think smaller municipalities are an advantage in that way because possibly one major project that's done is going to have multiple benefits for many people in the community because they're smaller versus putting like a park in a small part of Toronto. Like, I don't know, maybe it's a terrible example, but yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. So I have been told that we're going to have to wrap up. If there's other contributions to that, you've got maybe a minute or two to put them in the chat for folks. If we didn't get to your question and you have a specific question, Mathieu gave his contact there on funding opportunities. If you do have more specific questions on funding opportunities or within GMF, certainly reach out and we can definitely follow up there. I mean, I want to thank all of our presenters today. They were just fantastic, great information, great tools, and some great case studies. So thank you for sharing with us.